Hey there, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm with Jason Brown. If you don't already know Jason, he's a former Platinum Google Business Profile product expert, the founder of Review Fraud, and Bright Local's resident spam sheriff, who's helped countless businesses stamp out fake listings and fraudulent reviews. He's been featured on Bright Local, CNBC, and even NBC's Today Show for exposing the dark side of local search. And he even helped the FTC craft a fake review policy. Now, in this episode, we're diving into his battle-tested tactics for cleaning up Google Maps spam, safeguarding your online reputation, and ethically dominating local SEO, so you can outrank sketchy competitors and win more customers. Now, without further ado, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Of course. So I'd like to jump into your background a little bit more. Tell me how you got into local SEO, about 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, it was kind of a fluke. My now ex-wife and I had bought a condo, met our neighbor one Sunday evening. We chatted for a little bit. He was a web designer and he needed a project manager. So I said, hey, I need a project manager. He was building websites for the online casino industry. And then Congress came in and stopped that and said, you can't do that anymore because it was being used for, nefarious money laundering. So he had a client say, hey, do you know anything about local SEO? He said, sure. And so we started researching it. And next thing I know, I ended up building a career out of it, just out of fluke.
Wow, that's awesome. And walk me through what's been going on the past 20 years or so. So I've seen you've been involved in many different companies, and the past 9 years or so, you've been really focused on reviews. Tell me more about the journey.
Yeah, so I ended up working for like a couple churn and burn agencies, and just hook 'em and book 'em, selling snake oil, over promising, under delivering. In 2016, I ended up getting hired for Over the Top, and the CEO pulled me aside the first week I was there, took me to lunch. He's like, just so you know, anything we do has to be white hat. We have to protect our brand at all costs. And I was like, sure, I'm not going to do anything black hat, maybe a little gray hat, with like press releases, but nothing nefarious, because this is a nationwide franchise. If we nuked their website, we would knock out like 360 legitimate franchise locations across the U.S. So I was sitting at my desk one day in December, and a friend of mine had tweeted that somebody showed up at her house over a negative review. So I did a reverse image search, found her Yelp profile, noticed she only left two negative reviews, one for a nail salon, and the other for a plumbing company. So I looked up the plumbing company had like a 2.1 rating on Yelp. I look at their Google profile and they've got a 4.7. I was like, something's not adding up here. And I know Yelp tends to skew towards the negative. So I looked into their profile and I started seeing a lot of the same businesses in different states all being reviewed. And I was like, it's a review pod. At that same time, one of our franchisees was trying to boost his marketing, so he bought 19 fake Google reviews. And so I ended up working with Mike Blumenthal for like 3.5 months to get Google to remove all but one of the fake reviews. And so because Mike was so helpful, I decided, well, I'm going to start helping out on the forum. And then I ended up becoming a product expert. And then, so for like since June of 2016, it's been nothing but either local or spam fighting for me.
Awesome. Yeah, let's talk about removing spam reviews. So there's like a whole nother question. I get a lot of clients coming to me, and even some of my friends that own businesses, that they get a 1-star review, but it's actually a customer of theirs and they actually did do a bad job. But what about those 1 stars that maybe you get spammed, maybe it's a competitor? How do you get rid of those?
Yeah, so what I do is I put together a detailed sheet where it's the reviewer name, the reviewer link, and then I start highlighting all the businesses that they've been reviewing. And what I do is I show them, hey, these 8 people all left reviews for these same 7 businesses and the one that got attacked. And then I say, well, here's like 15 others that reviewed 6 of the same businesses. And so I just basically just highlight and show Google, look, this is not a real profile, because they're going all over the United States. They're leaving reviews in Canada. They're leaving reviews in Europe. And it's just like, so I put together a real well documented sheet, and then I turn it into Google and then let Google go and do the investigations. And then what they've been doing now, instead of just removing the reviews, they're actually nuking the account so that they can't log back in and leave more reviews.
nuking the Google account, as in they can't log in at all, or they just can't leave more reviews?
They completely delete it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that's pretty recent?
Yeah, this is within like the last couple of years. Because before, what they would do, which was ridiculous, and I looked at some of the review profiles that I'd gone to the Today Show with, and Google would go in and wipe out all the reviews, but then the fake review sellers would go in and log in and keep posting new reviews. And I was like, so it just became a game of whack-a-mole. Then all of a sudden Google was like, all right, you know what? Now we're going to start disabling the account. So that's been a real bonus of late.
Huh. So something I've heard from, it was someone else in the local SEO space, I forget who, but someone told me that like in some foreign countries, I don't know, it might be Vietnam or something, they have like sweatshops of like just tons of phones to leave reviews. Is that true? And is that what goes on?
It's in India and Indonesia is where they're doing it the most. And yeah, it's just a call center, sweatshop where they've got tons of people just, here's your script. Here's the reviews to leave, and they give them like 150, if they want them to leave for like one client. And they do such a poor job sometimes. Like sometimes they'll leave the quotation marks in, or they'll leave like the name of the business it's supposed to go to. And you're like, oh, yep, somebody wasn't paying attention. Somebody was moving too fast. But yeah, that's what they do. There's a lot of black hat tactics. There's a PI in Southern California. He's got his workers overseas clicking on LSAs and submitting requests for a lawyer, because he knows that one of the ranking factors for LSA is how responsive you are to those leads coming in. So if he does it in the middle of the night when the lawyers are sleeping, it tanks their LSA after 6 months. Plus, he does a lot of click fraud with PPC. He does fake reviews for his location. He's done fake negative reviews for his competitors, and Google won't do anything about it. It's insane.
Is there any way to combat that? Do you see that getting fixed in the future?
Yeah. So the nice thing is Google created this ability to turn off reviews for certain businesses. So what I saw in December of 2023 was several law firms lost. Not only did they lose reviews, they lost the ability to get new reviews for 6 months. Now here's the beauty. One of the ranking factors there's two ranking factors with reviews. The first is when you get to 10 reviews, and the next one is review recency. So these businesses not being able to get reviews for 5 or 6 months tanked their whole online rankings. Like if you looked at a heat map, they went from 1s and 3s down to 18s and 20s. Like they just got decimated. And these were law firms with multiple locations. So it wasn't just one location. So it was really nice to actually see a business actually get penalized once for having fake reviews.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of playing off what you were saying, how important are reviews regarding ranking? Like I've heard some people say 50%, or that's, you do a little bit of setup optimization. That's pretty much the only recurring work. Like how exactly important are they to rank your Google business profile?
Oh, it's become bigger in the last few months. It's always been somewhat of a ranking factor, but I think Google's cranked up the dial for review recency, and that's according to what Darren Shaw is seeing. Joy Hawkins was the first one to talk about review recency and do a case study on it. She was working with a business that wasn't really ranking well, and they went months without asking for reviews, and all of a sudden they started asking for reviews, and they started popping up in the ranking. So I think it's becoming a huge part, but the problem is like people think, oh, you need to have your clients, put keywords in your reviews. Well, that doesn't impact ranking. Then they say you need to respond to your reviews with your keywords in it. That doesn't impact rankings. So it's just getting reviews and listening to the feedback, right? Like people are like, oh, I got this 1-star review, and it's like, well, yeah, did you screw up? Yeah. Well, can you rectify it so it doesn't happen in the future? Sure. One of the businesses I first looked at in December 2016 was constantly getting negative reviews for poor service, cold food, watery drinks, and the business, instead of rectifying those issues, kept saying, oh, we're so sorry we missed the mark, please give us another chance, blah, blah, blah. But then all they did was buy fake reviews. Well, they're now out of business, right? Because they didn't listen to their customer feedback and didn't work on any of their areas that needed to be improved. So it's like, that's the important part for reviews for businesses. And that's where I first, dug into reviews for our franchises. And I was like, okay, here's our 5 pain points, right? Horrible cancellation policy, rude staff, not open when they say, and poor service, right? And so it's like, and I was like, okay, well, here's the franchises that are getting the most negative reviews, right? If we can get corporate to address this, then they're going to do better. And a lot of times it was the people who were always coming and complaining was, hey, our call volume's down, our leads are down. It's like, yeah, look at your negative reviews. Like, you're pushing people away.
Yeah, 100%. And then what about, so we were talking about mainly the spam reviews, but what about, like you were getting into, the legitimate 1-star reviews? Like, your company actually did a bad job. Is it worth rectifying those? And if so, how can you do that?
Yeah, so I always tell people to come at it robotic, right? Just be like, hey, we're so sorry, we messed up. Please contact us so we can try to rectify this, right? Because the one thing you want to do is you want to bring them offline, right? You don't want it to, stay there. And by doing that, you're also showing potential clients and customers that you're actually engaging with your reviews. They show that you have a human side to you. And here's the thing. Another myth when it comes to online reviews is people think that you have to have a perfect 5-star rating and one negative review is going to knock you down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. If you respond to that review in an irate way, then it's going to do more damage than just that 1-star review. And people know that businesses aren't perfect. And it could just be an off day. It could just be a customer who may have been in a sour mood. You never really know what's going on, but you want to make sure that you come off as genuine. And Bright Local's review factor study shows that people want to see businesses engaging with their reviews, right? Think about it like this. If somebody goes out of their way to thank you, are you not going to say you're welcome? And it's the same way with reviews, right? And so, it always blows my mind when I come across these, and I look at so many Google business profiles where they don't reply to all the reviews or any of the reviews. And I'm just like, you're leaving money on the table. It's like, why are you not doing that?
Yeah, no, you're so right with the, where was I at with that? Okay, anyway, so we'll go through with what you were saying of the review replies. Can you talk more about why those are so important? Of why, like, is it more for conversion? Because you're saying it's not for ranking?
Conversion, correct. It's for conversion. So if somebody's going to be looking at business A, comparing them with business B and business C, and business A may have more reviews and a higher rating, but a business C is like a 4.7, but they're replying to all their reviews and they seem genuine, then which business are you going to go with? The one with more reviews and the higher rating, or the one that's actually responding to their reviews? And Aaron Weike, who was the co-founder of what was then Get 5 Stars, and then rebranded to Gather Up, and then got sold to another company. But he actually found data that shows that you get a higher click-through rate with a 4.6 rating than you do with a 4.7 or 5.0.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've heard that a lot in the local SEO space. Yeah, I have a friend who's like, oh my God, I got 1 5-star, my business is ruined. It's like, dude, you're still at a 4.8, you're totally fine. And the other thing I was going to bring up, I keep seeing this meme come up on my Twitter feed, and it's essentially 2 products on Amazon. One that has like 50,000 reviews and it has a 4.5, and the other has like 20 reviews and it's a 5. And it's essentially everyone wants to pick the one with tons of reviews, but yet they're not a perfect rating, because you understand, like you said, not everyone's going to be perfect. You're not, the unboxing might be a little bit weird. And it's the same thing with local businesses. You're going to have a bad waiter for your restaurant, or you might have a bad tech for your home service business. So kind of just accepting that those happen. But just to kind of go back on that, is it worth actually having the person change the review, like having them change it from a 1 to a 5-star, or should you just let that be?
Well, you can always ask them if they would, but if they're satisfied, you can ask them to change their review. But here's the other thing. People discount reviews older than 3 months, so it's not going to have like this massive shelf life. And I've had somebody like reach out to me on Reddit, and he's like, "Hey, can you help remove these reviews?" And I was like, "That review's from 7 years ago. It's
Yeah.
5 years ago." It's like nobody's looking at that. It's like it's like forgotten because we know that businesses can change. They can change for the worse or for the better. And so sometimes it's just like just chalk it up as a loss and just move forward. But this whole mentality that I've got to be a perfect 5-star business. And I'm just like, no, it's like, that's not what it's about. And you work
Mm.
with pest controls. And so I know a lot of the pain points that they get. One is, for going door to door and soliciting, right? And so
Yeah.
people leave negative reviews because they're like, oh, I had a, no soliciting sign and they didn't honor that. Or I told them to go away, but the salesperson was pushy. And so, but if you take that into account, you're like, okay, hey, tone it down a little. If you see a no solicitation sign, don't knock. Just go. Just leave. Or if you get a negative review because one of your drivers was driving aggressively and speeding, then you tell everybody in the company, hey, make sure you're not speeding. Go to the
Hmm.
speed limit. You're an ambassador for our brand when you're out there in public. Keep that in mind. And things will be cool. But I see pest control companies all the time, same negative review over and over again. And it's like, guys, come on, like this is a no-brainer. Like this is like stuff you should learn in like the first grade, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say my threshold there for clients, or at least what we're looking to get, is a 4.5 or better. I think anything, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, those are all awesome. But once you're getting like below 4, if you're at like a 3.8 or a 3.6, that is definitely too low. Like, do you have a threshold there? Does it have to be above 4?
Yeah, I do like to see it above 4, but it depends on the industry, like how competitive it is. I was looking at one industry the other day, and it was in the map pack was a business that was a 3.8. And I was like, I
Really?
rarely see a business with a 3.8 ranking in the map pack. And, but yeah, it's like if you're below 4, then you're average, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's not even a passing grade in school. So it's like, yeah, you want to address that and figure out why are you getting such negative feedback, And like one case I was working on where this guy was buying fake reviews. Everybody that left him a negative review, he came at him as combative and put all the blame on his client. He's like, "Well, I told you I shouldn't take on this project. It wasn't gonna work out well. Blah 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 blah." And it's just like, buddy, you're making yourself look worse. And he actually called one reviewer a Karen. I was like,
No
dude,
way.
no, no. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, customer has to come first.
yeah, but yeah, and I mean, man, it's the stuff I see in reviews. There was one that actually got written up. The restaurant owner replied to the reviews and told people, "I hope you die in a car accident." Yeah, yeah,
What? The
yes.
owner said that?
Owner said that he was from the UK.
That is insane. I've
Yeah,
never heard that.
yeah. I'll
Wow.
I'll I'll send you the screenshot because it's just I mean it's one of my favorite. But yeah, on Joy's local search forum, we actually have a thread where we would post the worst owner responses. I
That's
mean, it's
hilarious.
some like really choice, funny. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. You could think that in your head, but you put it to pen.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to your brand, right? So
Yeah,
what the things that you are putting out, the way that you're interacting with customers, it's a great way to show people that are either prospects or existing customers, this is how we talk to people that we deal with.
yeah,
So they assume if you say, I hope you get hit by a car and die or whatever, car crash, then they're going to think that you mean the same for all of your newer customers. It's
right.
like, hey, wait, I just became a customer of this company. You want me to die? Like,
Yeah,
I don't think I want to be a customer anymore.
yeah, yeah. Over a $20 meal. Like, come on.
It's not worth it.
Yeah,
It's not worth it. I'd like to switch topics a little bit here, switch gears.
sure.
I want to cover suspensions. I know this is a huge thing. A ton of companies deal with it. I've had many people come to me with this problem. And a lot of times it's not completely valid, but each case varies. So let's first jump into this. Why do companies get their Google business profiles suspended? What are the most common reasons?
Yeah, so the most common reasons is they get reported by a competitor using either suggest and edit or redressal. Lately, it's because Google's stupid. There's no sugarcoating it. They cranked up the dial on AI and algorithms. And so what we saw in February was a massive amount of suspensions. And it's a lot of legitimate businesses got caught up in this sweep. The reason for it is the black hat spammers were going hog wild, creating a bunch of fake listings. So twice, Google prevented locksmiths from being reinstated or creating new listings for like 6 months because they just went hog wild, creating massive amount of fake listings. Google just sued a Israeli guy in Boston, I think Boston or Massachusetts, and they suspended 10,000 fraudulent lead generation GBPs. And
Wow.
yeah, and so they're suing him and everybody that's connected with him. And so people get upset with Google when their listing gets suspended. Well, it's because Google really can't tell what is a legitimate SAB, means hiding your address, and what's legitimate. And so what they do is they use a lot of algorithms. So like one case, people were creating like 30,000 or 40,000 fraudulent lead generation personal injury attorneys all across the U.S. So we were seeing it in Chicago, California, Texas, Florida, New York. And it was like the most ridiculous names. So I pitched the story to the Wall Street Journal, and they covered it. And the Sunday before the article was supposed to come out, Google did a massive sweep and ended up removing about 40,000 Google business profiles. Some of them were legit, but a majority of them were fraudulent. And the reason why I'm saying some of them were legit is because one of the ranking factors with Google is putting, for your Google business profile, is putting your keywords in your business name, in your title, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of law firms rebranded themselves to be personal injury attorney Dallas, right? Car accident attorney Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
And so when Google would see like those types of patterns, and you've got multiple locations, so not just one location, but you've got like 8 locations in the Dallas area, they got caught up in that sweep. And so that's what we're seeing a lot more of, is Google is really going after these SABs. And not only are they going after the SABs, they've made it more difficult to actually apply for reinstatement. So I would be able to get somebody reinstated like right away with just a couple of pieces of documentation. Now they're wanting your business registration, your EIN number, copy of the lease, a city license if you have it, copy of insurance, a utility bill under your company name. And so they're putting more of the onus on the business owners, and they're rejecting it, for rinky-dinky things. But one of the biggest fails that I see when it comes to SABs is their business description. Your business description should say who you are, but a lot of times people put in like sales words. We're the best pest control company, 100% satisfaction guaranteed, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Google sees that, they're like, no, reject. And, or it could be a case where the SAB moved. Well, you're not supposed to move an SAB. You're supposed to create a new SAB, contact Google, and have them merge the two SABs together, because you're always going to, of course, phone has to ring in the middle of this, because you're always going to rank at the original address that you were verified at, because they ended up taking it. That stupid phone. Because they ended up taking the address out from the back end, so there's no way that you can actually go in there and get that updated, right? So you used to be able to go in there and just update your address, and boom, you were good to go. Once they removed it from the back end for privacy reasons, it screwed the whole system up. But Google also wasn't ready for SABs when they created Google Maps. Google Maps is only supposed to be for brick and mortars, addresses you can go to. And because there was such a pushback on the fact that you couldn't have an SAB, Google ended up changing the policies to allow for an SAB.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no, I actually didn't know about that story of 40,000 Google business profiles getting wiped out. That is insane. That is like huge local SEO news.
Oh, it was... even better, the team behind it actually spoke with the Wall Street Journal reporter and said, yeah, we don't care. We're happy doing it.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Kind of leading after what you were saying of these companies getting suspended, and you have to include more information now. So let's say someone does get suspended. How can they make sure that their appeal gets accepted?
Yeah. So, like I said, you want to go through your business profile. I just tell people just remove your business description just to make sure. Make sure you set make sure your hours are normal hours. 8 to 6, 9 to 5. Don't do the 24/7. 24/7 is a guaranteed block on reinstatement.
Really?
Yeah. I was. Yeah, this one guy came to me and I looked at his business profile. I'm like, okay, you got to set to 24/7. You got a bad business description, and your business name is all jacked up. No wonder why you got denied. And then again, you want to have your Secretary of State filing. If you're doing a DBA, include your DBA, your EIN paperwork, copy of the lease if you're showing your address. If you're not showing your address, you don't have to worry about that. Utility bill under the name of the company. If you do have a city license or insurance, include that. If you're a lawyer, then you want to include your state bar license. Just as much documentation as you can. What I tell people to do, and what I always do, is I create a Drive folder and I upload all the documents to it. Because Google's only going to let you upload, I think, 4 or 5 pieces of documentation. But if you have more, then you can include the link and see why you think it should be reinstated. You're like, all of our documentation is listed right here. So that way they can go through each and every single document. If you have more, to sit there and say, yeah, we're good. And that's the thing I don't get about Google. It's like, if Google's requiring more documentation, this is how stupid Google is. They don't think. If they're requiring more pieces of documentation and they only allow you to upload 4, hello?
Yeah.
Anybody home, McFly?
Yeah, no, pretty stupid.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, People argue with me on Reddit. They think I'm a Google apologist, and I'm not.
That's funny.
I tell it like it is. If there's things that Google does well, then yeah, I'll give them kudos for it. But the things that they don't do well, and things that we've been harping on them for like years, yeah, I'm going to call Google out on it. I got no skin in the game. But if a business owner is like, well, I'm not going to do the appeal, and Google can go screw themselves, or I'm not going to do paid ads, I'm like, dude, you're just hurting yourself. Like, it's not on me, because I'm telling you just the things you should do.
Yeah, definitely. So then what happens, and what should people do if their appeal gets denied? So you try to submit all your documentation, maybe someone just does it off the fly, maybe they just do one piece of document, they get rejected. What do you have to do the next time? How do you make sure that you get that reinstated?
Yeah, so you get 2 tries, and then you're able to use another appeal. If that doesn't work, you can either hire people like me to do the reinstatement, or you can go directly to the Google Business Forum. But you also want to make sure that your GBP, is in compliance, all your documentation, you got all your ducks in a row. Because if you go to the forum and it's backed up there, if a PE looks at it and escalates it and says, yeah, no, you're not in compliance, after they kick it up to Google. And Google's like, yeah, no, we're not reinstating this. Well, you just wasted a bunch of months. So you want to make sure you do it right the first time.
Yeah, 100%. And something you were mentioning before, which, I've seen this plenty of times, and this is just a fact, that having the keyword in your business name helps ranking. Do you recommend that people do that? And if so, how should they go about it?
Yeah, totally fine to do, but you got to get a DBA. Right, so you either you need to update your Secretary of State filing, or you need to get a DBA, so that way you can actually show that you can use that name. You're allowed to use it. So you got to change your logo. You got to get that new name added onto your website, because if it's not there, then you're going to run into issues. And Google kind of like screwed the pooch. They decided that they didn't want to start enforcing some of their TOS policies. One was name in the business name, keywords in the business name. So they allow you to do like up to 3 keywords. So say you're like personal injury attorney, Dallas, then you could be, the Jake Morrison law firm, space hyphen personal injury, Dallas, and Google won't go in and change it. Another policy that they don't enforce as much is when you're showing your address and you're not supposed to. They're just like, I don't care. And it's like, which is kind of like infuriating because, I had this guy, he got suspended. He goes, yeah, show my address. I'm not supposed to, but all my competitors are doing it. And so my buddy was like, is this like, if my friends do it, I should be able to do it too?
Yeah. No, I hear a lot of controversy here. A lot of companies want to add an address because it helps ranking. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in the local SEO space. I'd say pretty much confirmed that it helps your ranking.
Sometimes.
Is it worth getting a business location? Like, when does it make sense to get one as a service area business?
Yeah. So so this is one of those, it depends. So
yeah.
I've seen cases, where SABs have actually ranked really, really well over businesses with their addresses showing, right? And I've looked at that on heat maps, and I can do side-by-side comparisons with Places Scouts. If they're not ranking well, then trying to add your address might give you a ranking boost. But a lot of times what people do with SABs is they go and they move that SAB to a brick and mortar, they get an office. And it's like, no. Keep your SAB. Create a new business profile at the new address because you're allowed to have an SAB at your address, at your home address, because you're the owner. Yeah, nobody talks about this.
Huh.
The only reason why people don't want to do that is because they already have a whole bunch of reviews on their existing GBP. But it's like, but you could have dual bang for your buck. And then if you do have 2 GBPs, you can create a second set of citations for that new GBP, and then you're going to get a bunch of links pointing back to your website. So
interesting. So then you don't sacrifice your key GBP.
Right, exactly. And so now if you're getting a new influx of reviews, and you separate that new GBP out to its own landing page, and that's the thing that people don't always think about. I'd say probably like 96% of the time, people are linking to their homepage. Well, if your homepage is not properly optimized for your keyword phrase, then you may be doing more harm than good. So one thing I would say before deciding to update your address is maybe change the URL that you're linking to from your GBP. Think of your URL on GBP like you're setting up a paid ad, right? You don't send it to your home page. You send it to a page that's been set as no index because it's going to have a whole different click-through rate and bounce rate. So that's what I tell people to do. It's like, well, if your homepage isn't ranking with your GBP, and especially now with this new update that Google's been doing, where if a business shows up in the map pack, they're not showing up in organically, or if they are showing up organically, then they're not showing up in the map pack. So you got to change the URL, to get your rankings back. So there's all sorts of things that people can do, but the things that people always want to do is, I just need to add my address and I'm going to be fine. Well, now here's the problem. Some categories, if you add your address, so 4 things happen. One of 4 things will happen when you make an update to Google Business Profile. It automatically gets accepted. They'll go into pending review. You'll have to re-verify. And the 4th one is a suspension. Now, there's 2 types of suspension. There's a soft suspension where you're still showing up online, but you can't manage the profile. And there's a hard suspension where you're completely wiped off of Google. So I sit there and I tell people, I was like, before you make this change, are you ready to apply for reinstatement? And can you afford to be knocked offline? Now, we've seen delays up to 6 weeks. Can you be offline for 6 weeks waiting for the team to go in and check and get your documents? I don't know a lot of businesses that can survive that. So that's what I always tell people.
Okay, awesome. Talk to me more about there's 2 kinds of suspensions. I don't think I've heard that actually. What's the difference?
Yeah, so soft suspension means that Google trusts the business, but not the activity on it. Hard suspensions, Google's like, we don't think you're legitimate at all. We don't trust you. You don't have an online footprint, right? So, because I get these people, and they're always complaining about their suspensions. And then when I run a citation scan on them, I say, all you set up was Google and Facebook. Where's Yelp? Where's Yahoo? Where's Bing? Where's Apple Maps? Where's all these other directories that you could be listed on? Like, you didn't do anything, and so yeah, you're going to get a hard suspension, But I'm like, if you would have set these up and you would have gotten registered with the BBB and got accredited with them, you'd be in a much better situation. But you basically are like, Google's like, well, we don't really know. And if we don't really trust the profile, we'll knock it offline.
Yeah, where do citations play here? I feel like, well, even Darren Shaw said this, I've gotten it from him, that citations used to be a much bigger ranking factor, but now is it just more so to not get suspended and just build your entity, or what exact role do they play?
Yeah, so yeah, it's to build your entity, but here's the thing. So I was talking with an agency, and I was talking about, they said to me, they're like, hey, we're not showing up for our knowledge panel, right? And the knowledge panel is where you got your business listed on the right-hand side. And I said, well, have you set up citations? He said, no. And I said, well, set up citations. He's like, oh, I don't believe in citations. So we went back and forth for like several weeks, and he's like, fine, I'm going to go to White Spark and get citations. He gets citations set up. 2 weeks later, he starts showing up for his knowledge panel for his brand name. And I was like, sorry, what? What? Was that correct? And so that's the difference with citations. Now, if you use a platform like Yext, they give you two places to put your website URL, right? One is called a featured message. So what I do is I go for the keywords and the city that I want to rank for. And some of those directory sites, you actually get an anchor link text back to your website.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I got that one from Blake Denman, and that's like, because when I first set it up, it was like walk-in chiropractor, and so we started ranking for a lot of walk-in medical terms, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I realized when I looked at their backlinks, it was because I set it up that way. So once I switched it to Houston chiropractor, then all of a sudden we started ranking for Houston chiropractor terms. And there's that old saying that you can only rank in the map pack once. Well, one time I actually got all three of our chiropractic franchises in the map pack in Houston.
At the same time?
At the same time. I showed that to my boss, and he was floored.
That is awesome.
I lost a screenshot of that. I wish I had that, because it was funny too, because like one of my buddies was complaining to Joy Hawkins. He's like, man, I hate the person who does the SEO for the joint chiropractic. And she's like, well, you actually know him. He's like, what? You? And then he calls me up and goes, are you doing that SEO for the joint chiropractic? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I hate you, but I love you.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you were telling me before the show that you have a lot of haters and a lot of people, you're kind of living rent-free in a lot of people's heads. Well, why do people hate you?
Yeah, people hate me because I disrupt the apple cart. So I actually got one black hat spammer. He's like, hey, I don't know about you, but I know that I work for money, and I'm trying to, employ people in a third world country, and it just makes sense if you just leave me alone, and I can pay you to just leave my listings alone. And I was just like, what? And people don't like me because I tell the truth, right? I don't pull punches, Like I said, if I have issues with Google, I'll take issues with Google. If I find that somebody's doling out bad SEO advice, like one of my favorites is, oh, you need to add new photos to your GBP. That's gonna impact your rankings. It's like, no, it doesn't. We're regurgitating stuff from 2016, and then people are like, well, you need to have NAP consistency. I'm like, no, you don't. Mike Blumenthal in 2019 says it's dead. Joey Hawkins has said that you don't need your suite or billing number because Google doesn't use that for ranking factors. You can have a separate telephone number on your GBP, your website, Facebook, Yelp, Yahoo, Bing, so you can track those calls coming in. So Google's not even looking at the phone number. And I've seen cases where somebody will update their name on GBP and start ranking higher, even though it doesn't match any of their citations. But I say that, and then people are like, oh, you're an idiot. You know what you're talking about. I'm like, actually, I do. I'm like, I really do. And so whenever I say that, then it riles people up. And I'm just like, one guy's like, oh, your GBP is not ranking. You need local links. I'm like, local links aren't going to fix your GBP rankings. Like, it'll help more with your website now, but that won't do as much with GBP. So the main ranking factors for GBP is your business name, your primary category, proximity to the searchers, influx of new reviews, and click-through rate. And nobody wants to talk about click-through rate unless they're talking about click-through rate manipulation, which works, but only works for like 2 or 3 months, and then it stops working. So you got to, because Google's like, okay, this is fake bot traffic. We're not buying it. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, just go white hat. forget looking over your shoulder, wondering, am I going to get suspended? Is Google going to catch on to my new scheme? Just play by the rules the first time.
No, definitely. I love that you take this truthful, honest approach. And I'm a white hat myself, so I've had a black hat or two on the show, but generally I'm looking for white hat people. I want to keep it truthful because Google's cracking down more, and ultimately, like it's way better to win the right way rather than like, oh, I tricked the system and it worked for 3 months, then it got removed. It's like, well, why even do it if we end up getting removed?
And the fascinating thing is these black hat local SEOs cannot answer a basic question, right? Like, you and I are talking about suspensions. One black hat SEO got asked the question, "What should I do when I got suspended?" He's like, "Oh, nothing. You just got to start over from scratch." And it's like, you can answer an easy softball question. I was like, but you can tell people how to manipulate your rankings, but then they always sell like that stupid stuff like the map stacks and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, oh, just stop it. And there's also a lot of infighting with the black hats too, which I love. Like there's this one guy, he had a bunch of people come up on a show, started buying their courses and started reselling their courses as his own. And so they turned on him. And then the guy kept getting booted off of Facebook. So he had to keep creating new profiles. I'm just like, dude, you could have just played by the rules, man.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I think there are less and less black hats as the time goes on, but there's still a good amount of them. But I want to cover, which actually I'm glad you already brought up, the kind of the top ranking factors. So I believe you mentioned 5, but the one I want to hone in on is conversion rate, because we kind of talked about the other ones already, but is there a way to increase your conversion rate on Google Business Profile? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so responding to reviews will help increase your conversion rate. Having a great primary photo. So what I always tell people is, look, there's 2 types of photos that Google loves. Photos of people, actually 3. Photos of people, photos of the exterior, and a product shot. So what I tell people to do is get a group photo in front of the establishment. Everybody's all dressed up, pristine, nice shirts, or the company polo or whatever, and have everybody take a photo standing in front of the building. That's gonna sell more than just some random photo, and so that will help with conversions. Don't harp on uploading all these photos. If you're in an industry where you can get people to upload photos, then do it. Like I talked to real estate agents, and I'm like, oh, it's so hard for me to get reviews, and I'm like, you want my easy tip right now? So you're a realtor. So what are the 2 types of photos that people take? The day that the sold sign goes on the house, so that could be either the seller or the buyer, and then the day that they get their keys and they're going into their house. So you meet them there on the day that they're going to get their keys, because they're going to take that photo. So they say, hey, can I take it for you? Hey, will you upload that photo to Google and Yelp for me? And so, Yelp has that don't ask for reviews, but it's not a violation to ask a customer to upload a photo, because both Google and Google and Yelp will ask that consumer if they want to leave a review with that photo. So now you just got a dual win, because Google loves user-generated content. I actually saw a case study where a company went in and removed they overrode all of the customer photos of their food dishes with their own images that they took. And the metrics just completely tanked. And this guy was talking to me, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, this SEO agency did such a horrible job. They had more customer photos than professional photos. And I was like, dude, are you not looking at the metrics of how views just tanked? And you've got the API access. And I was just like, you know what? Not dealing with it. Like, there's just certain people on this, like, if you don't know your craft and you're not looking at data. And my personal pet peeve is when they call it Google My Business or GMB, and I'm like, dude, you're not even current. I'm like, it hasn't been called that since I think 2021, 2019. Like, yeah. I'm like, no. If you're doling on a device and you're calling it Google My Business, no, sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I get the home service owners, whatever, that are calling it, but like, come on, it's been like 5 years. I think it's ready to change.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the industry and you're still using the wrong name, I'm like, yeah, you don't really know your craft at all.
Yeah, definitely. I've got two more questions for you. This one relates actually to what you were saying, and you were mentioning, photos on Yelp and other platforms, maybe Facebook. What about reviews on these platforms? Do those help GBP ranking? I've heard mixed opinions on this.
So they don't impact GBP rankings on Google. However, there is strong data to show that it help with rankings with ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah, Darren Shaw just came out with a screenshot from a couple days ago, and it was some of the obscure review platforms, but Google seems to be favoring it. They used to have from the web where they would pull in reviews from other platforms. They'll be like, oh, here's a review from Angie's List, here's a review from Judy's book, or blah blah blah. These obscure ones that people don't go to anymore or think about. But Google does like that third party data, so they're not using it now on local or map packs, but in ChatGPT, it does seem to be making a difference. But I think people put too much of their eggs in one basket. It's like just reviews on Google. It's like, well, you forget Yelp feeds to, I think, Yahoo or Bing. I can't remember which one, and they also feed reviews into Apple Maps. So it's like, so if you're ignoring Yelp because you're just like, oh, I don't like them, they're evil, and I'm like, every company's evil in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, you got sales guys that are trying to make a buck, okay? And so, but you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face. So you do need to, get an influx of reviews across multiple platforms to even have a shot.
Interesting. Okay, so they definitely matter. Not as much as Google reviews, but you should still be collecting those as well. Awesome.
Correct.
And last question I have for you, Jason, kind of a general one, but overall, what advice would you give to maybe local SEOs or local business owners? What do they need to know in the future? What call to action do you have for them?
Yeah, so I think the best thing that people can do is go to the right forums, right? Figure out who the leaders are in local SEO, right? So follow Joy Hawkins, follow Darren Shaw, follow me, because we're the ones that are putting out the content that's really truly important and not the fluff stuff. So I'm online everywhere. I'm in so many different Facebook groups, and I'm in several subreddits. I help out on local search forum, so anywhere that somebody's asking questions about local, then I'll go there and post, and I think that's the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask questions, especially business owners. Business owners, there's no stupid question you can ask. Some SEOs can ask some pretty stupid questions. I actually had one. She asked me 3 times if we could get a GBP verified when they were showing their address and there was no signage. And I was like, you have 19 years experience in the industry, same as me, and you're asking me this question. I was like, there are dumb questions.
Yeah.
So, but I think, but it's just, keep reading. Barry Schwartz puts out a bunch of good content on SEO Roundtable. Search Engine Land has some good stuff. Search Engine Journal's okay. Occasionally they'll let stuff slip in. I've emailed them because somebody rewrote the same article 3 times, and all 3 times it was incentivized for reviews. Well, you can't do that. So it's just if it's your business, it's your baby, and you want to see it grow. If you're an agency, and you see me online somewhere, don't be afraid to hit me up and ask me a question. If you see me on LinkedIn or Blue Sky or Reddit, I actually had somebody ping me. He's like, "Hey, Jason, you're really good at this one. Do you mind answering this question?" I'm like, "Sure, do this. Because thank you so much." I'm like, "Hey, happy to help." That's the thing is, I have a bad reputation of just being this mean cuss, but I genuinely care, and I give solid advice because I want to see people succeed and not fall into these SEO black hat courses. You're like, oh, I want to increase my rankings and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I'm like, these courses are just snake oil. They're not going to give you a leg up or an advantage. So.
Definitely. No, at least from what I've seen on this podcast, you're a super nice guy, super humble, but you had super experience. I mean, you've been in it for a while, and I even learned several things in this podcast. I feel like I know a ton of local SEO, but you taught me some things in the show, and the people you recommended, again, Darren, Joy, Barry, all those people are great. I vouch for all of them as well, including yourself. So yeah, cool. Awesome. So we can wrap up the show here. So where can people find you, learn more about you and your services?
Yeah, so you can either go to Review Fraud or just do a Google search for Kaiser Holiday, because that's my handle, KEYSERHOLIDAY. Back in the day, Matt Cutts was always like, build a brand, build a brand. So I built out the Kaiser Holiday brand. I took 2 characters from 2 movies. It's Kaiser Sose from Usual Suspects, and it's Doc Holliday with the 1 L missing. And so I put them together. And so then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, this is my brand, as I started becoming the unofficial sheriff of Google. It's like Kaiser, because I'm an enigma, and Holiday, because I'm a gunslinger, and Google Review, it's like the wild, wild west. And so it's just like, yeah, let's just, embrace it. And so, yeah, you can always find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, Blue Sky. Just search Kaiser Holiday and I'll come up.
Awesome. Cool. So all those links will be in the description, and anything else you'd like to plug or mention?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to really plug. If you ever do need advice, with suspensions or review removals, or your competitor is being super spammy, hit me up. I love diving into that. I do a lot of big case escalations. I'm working on one I've been working on since December of 2023. And it's a super shady pest control company.
Really?
They actually got investigated by the Michigan Attorney General because all their websites didn't have the actual real company's name. I got them removed all the way down to 3 Google business profiles, and then they started reinstating and creating more. So I've got a new case in with Google where we're going after 48 of the GBPs when they initially had like 83, and it's a fun, wild case. I'll share the link with you. And I started tracking from May 17th how many times, or actually April 17th, how many times I would get it removed and when it would come back, like 2 days later. And so it's just wild to just watch. It's like live, removed, And so it's just, it's one of the fun cases I work on. But like every case I work on is always fun. I always learn something new about it. So, yeah.
That's crazy. No, it's super relevant because it's a pest control case. But yeah, awesome. It was so great having you on the show, Jason. Again, I learned a lot, and it was good to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure. Take care, Danny.
Thanks, Jason. All right, bye.